Hello and welcome to another edition of the Family Business. I'm your host, Joe Castiglione Jr., and my co-host, Isaac Stoops. We are really excited today to have a legend in-house. One of Isaac's and I's personal favorite OU football players, Mark Clayton. 7-year vet, 5 with the Ravens, 2 with the Rams, first-round draft pick, national champion, hell of a player here at OU. Mark, we appreciate you joining us today.
Joe, Isaac, appreciate y'all having me, man. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, very good to see you.
Mark, it kind of seems too that, just from the outside looking in, you've had a ton of interest outside of football. We talk about your headphones, especially just kind of the trailblazing way those came into the market. So can you talk a little bit about just how you came? You're like, hey, I want to create some headphones. Talk about that and just talk about, kind of your business mindset, transitioning from football.
Well, when I first got to Oklahoma, really when I was getting recruited, my high school coach was really cool. I mean, and really good at just vouching for his guys and knowing what we wanted. And he knew I wanted to be an architect. So a lot of my first offers were from Purdue, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Vanderbilt, really good architecture schools. And, as Oklahoma came into the mix, that totally changed the game. But as I got into Norman, I started as an architect. And so with that being kind of my background and the way my mind worked from a design and kind of structure standpoint, as I retired, I was having issues with the headphones that I was wearing. And I just thought I could design something that would be different than what was out there. And so I created a different headband than anybody had seen before. And I thought would be, from an ergonomic standpoint, functional. And it worked. And we got a couple patents on it, which is really neat. And now I'm in the second iteration of this headphone. So I did a lot of R&D. And so this model is a really neat model that I'm on the verge of launching.
Fantastic. Is there a release date of this? Is that public yet, or kind of an area that you're targeting to push it back
Not
out?
a date, but summer of this year, and then fall we'll be delivering.
Fantastic. And the name of your headphones again? Live, right?
Sure. Live, Livv.
Yeah, no.
And so it's Live Audio. And so it'll be all things audio, but this will be my flagship product.
Awesome. That's great. I remember when I saw them before, you're kind of one of the first people to, of course you mentioned the patents, but you're kind of the first people to have a headphone that's like, hey, this is great quality sound while you work out. People mostly were working out in earbuds then a little bit.
Right.
And then you actually
and over here is half the space.
Yeah. And then you mentioned actually before we started recording that you're actually heading over to China. Is that right? To visit the manufacturer?
Yeah, man. We're actually working with a group out in Dongguan, China, which I'm sure everybody knows pretty much everything is done out there. A lot of manufacturing is actually starting to move into Mexico and India. But for now, tech headphones in particular are in Dongguan, China. And so I'll be heading there next weekend for a few days to spend time working on our functional prototype.
That's really cool. I mean, it's kind of one of those things when you're building a product such as that, something trailblazing and new. Did you just kind of ask around a little bit, use Google a little bit, or how'd you like, hey, I'm going to start this headphone business? I don't really, I would be like, I don't really know how to do this. So like, how'd you even start that? You called a few people and then you're like,
it would, yeah. I mean, it's called a couple people and you need an industrial, well, I guess me knowing kind of design and taking something from a sketch to real life, industrial design is a huge part of it. Somebody that understands CAD. And so my first calls were to find somebody who was really good at industrial design and structuring something that ergonomically was different from what was out there. And for me, function was a big part of the headphone. And so taking in consideration, things like centrifugal force, who was a designer who had an engineering background who would be able to apply this to what we're doing and make the design as efficient and effective as possible, which led me to who was a partner in my company, Dale Lott, out in Nashville, Tennessee. Awesome dude. We spent many hours in the basement figuring things out and prototyping and 3D printing stuff and trying different headphones or different bands and different angles and all that fun stuff. And it was at that point that he was able to introduce me to another guy who was really big on the manufacturing side with a company called Intricon, who did a lot of little mini parts, micro parts. So he knew a lot of manufacturers in Taiwan and in China. And so that was my first kind of trip overseas with him, was to Taipei, Taiwan, to meet a manufacturer, and then into China, Shenzhen, and then Dongguan to meet a couple more manufacturers to choose from. And so, it was like once you got, connected to somebody in there, they know somebody else that can get you to the next spot.
That's a lot of process. That's a lot of work right there.
A lot of headphones look good, but you don't necessarily consider the function or what all goes into that. I mean, you watch a lot of Shark Tank. I feel like we just got a Shark Tank pinch. You know what I mean? I feel like you probably.
Yeah, I can answer any question that would come from a Shark Tank.
Kill a pitch.
How much percent of your business are you offering us? And we'll go talk to our panel off air. The Sooner Scoop investment arm.
Yeah.
We're starting that too.
Right.
We're starting the panel.
Yeah, that's starting today.
We'll just start that too. We'll just have people pitch local IDs.
Yeah.
Local IDs. We'll chime you in. We'll have a Shark Tank round table.
Yeah.
No doubt.
No, and
Yeah.
I know I wanted to plug that first because I know a lot of people. It's been a few years since you launched that, so I know a lot of people had a lot of questions about that, including myself. And I'll have to get me a pair of those when you relaunch those. So. For sure.
I'll send you guys the preview that we put together. It's just the animated clip. I'll shoot it to you when we're out here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Perfect.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep.
In addition to that, Mark, I think one thing that a lot of people appreciate is you're active on Twitter. You're an active voice, on fronts of OU football, OU sports, and the Ravens. But just kind of wanted to get your idea on, because you have such a business mindset now, do you think if NIL existed 20 years ago, you could have taken advantage of that a little bit?
Man, I did not have a business mindset back then. But as a, young 17, 18, 19, 20, for sure, knowing that money was out there, I'm sure I would have found my way, just like you guys would too.
Yeah, exactly.
If that was the case,
Chasing
I would
that
have
bag.
definitely found my way.
Yeah.
Had that
absolutely.
partnership. You could have launched the headphones in. Could have been on V3 by now. V4, yeah.
Exactly. Would have been in every retailer by now.
No.
Which is another layer to the beautiful part of what the NIL has opened up. Entrepreneurship and athletics go hand in hand. And, athletes that get it and can see it can make a killing and set themselves up beyond anything that they would do on the football field in an enormous way.
Yeah, I think it's really like benefiting athletes in regards to, just the business, atmosphere, like while getting their education, you can actually do it in real time, real life situations. So, I mean, do you like the direction that college football is going with, with all of these new changes, or do you think, there might need to be some guardrails here as we're getting, reaching year, what is it, 4, or,
3 or 4.
3 or 4 of NIL. Yeah. I like the fact that there's a market now for athletes to really make money on what they're doing, because obviously the universities make money for the business and the product that they provide. And the product is athletes. And so for those guys to have some leverage in the game now, I think is really good. I do think there will come a day where regulation will be in place. There will be some type of crackdown in some way, shape, form, or fashion, which I think is needed. But ultimately, I do love where college football is at, and I love where it's going, especially now with the 12-team playoff. That's going to help with having games mean something for more. So more of the bowl games are actually going to, or should be, more engaging and entertaining. Now that a 12 seed actually has an opportunity to get to the national championship.
I think that's kind of the part that a lot of people kind of misconstrue, because they hear 12-team playoff. They're like, oh, a team can lose 2 games in the year and not me as much. But I think it's quite the opposite, because you got 12 spots to fight for. And like you said, those games and those playoff games are going to mean so much more. You're going to see less opt-outs.
Yep.
You're going to see other players play that may have not otherwise. But during the season, there's going to be a lot more teams in contention down the year. So those games are going to be a lot more competitive. They're going to mean a lot more. If anything, it's just giving us another 1 2, 3, 4 games. I don't know the exact number. At the back end of the year, they're going to be really good games.
Yeah, like, cause I mean, some of those bowl games this year, like a lot of them that I was, looking forward to some of the matchups. Not most, but some of the key players were missing from a lot of those games, and it just made it, a lot less interesting. Or what should have been a great game just ended up, just being okay.
Yeah, I think it's to the point with NIL, the playoff, all this conference realignment. I think it's going to get to the point that people can agree that it is going to get to the right point. It's just going to be very messy in the meantime without all this regulation stuff because, college athletes do deserve a market. They are obviously a product. They contribute more than anything to what's on the field, the money in the athletic department's pocket. But it's really messy right now. I think without, any actual contracts or some layers are enforceable, on both sides. Some players getting screwed out of money or schools kind of getting screwed out of paying player, not paying players, but funding players through NIL. Just the absence of that right now is just kind of messy. But I think the point we're going to get to in 4 or 5 years, it's going to be a really good product.
I agree.
Oh yeah, it will stabilize. And I'll tell you what, like the beautiful part of this market right now, it's sucky, but there's winners and losers in any market in the world. And this one is wide open and it's volatile. And what it's doing in these first few years is going to teach kids to really do their due diligence before making a decision. I don't know how many kids get stuck in the portal year after year, but I have to imagine that number is significant. And they thought one thing when in fact the reality was another, which, I'm a big, learn from watching, see the guy in front of you do it. If he messed it up, don't mess it up. If you got it right, repeat that, whatever it is. But with the market, I think is a big play in the fact that guys will have to do their due diligence before they make a decision.
Yeah. Do you think you kind of
self-introspection?
100%. Do you think you kind of had that mindset at OU, not making that mistake of the person in front of you? I mean, I know you had the redshirt year correct during the national championship year. Right. And so, of course, a ton of talented players there. Is that kind of something that you, enforced in yourself that first year here at OU?
Oh, most definitely. My mentality, my thought, I'm a very methodological, I can't get that word, very methodological. Anyway, we'll skip that.
Yeah, I got you. We got you.
There you go. Thank you. Methodological. Thought guy, and so when I was on the field, everything was, if coach gave me whatever the steps were on the route, I was precise on those steps. Whatever I needed to do in a formation, yard wise from the hash, I was precise on that. My goal was to have him trust that whatever they said, whatever the play was called, that I knew where to be, and I was there every time as a freshman. That was my end. Part of it was my brain, because I wasn't very physically imposing. I was quick, but I was a little bitty scrawny dude that, I had to be smart.
I wanted to bring that up. We've heard about a couple bench press stories. Is it true that when you came in, maybe your bench press wasn't up to par of everybody else?
Yeah, I didn't work out in high school, really. I just liked to play the sport. And then when the sport was over, I played the next sport. Try to stay away from the off seasons. And when I got to Oklahoma, you couldn't get away from it. And we were doing the test to see how strong I was. And, it was Coach Edmond in there. And he was like, we'll start off, we'll just get you a warm up. And he put 135 on the bar and got it off for me. And he stepped down from behind the thing to walk, around. And by the time he was walking around, I was struggling at the bottom. And he was like, man, let's just go run the 40. Right.
Let's just go see you run, big dog.
Let's just do that. And that wasn't more, that wasn't any more pleasant either. I mean, I was like 4'7" at that time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of schools, I mean, surprisingly, I mean, I'm sure it's less and less these days, but don't, have strength programs at their, high schools. And so some kids just come in off, raw talent, or kids who just, like you said, you went from sport to sport. Like, I remember Nick Benito was in my recruiting class, and he plays for the Broncos now, but just, like a phenomenal player, but just raw talent. And then you come here, and ultimately, do you think that affected your decision some? Like Schmitty and the strength coach, like did you come in wanting to, or knowing obviously that you were going to improve in those areas to really take it to the next level?
I didn't even think about that part, bro. Like, I didn't even think about working that part. All I thought was
Nobody
being a
likes that
receiver.
part.
Yeah, I literally did not. And, and it was like, I mean, it was a shock. It was a real shock to my body. I had a full body cramp like in that first week. I tore my pec muscle. I tore that like early in the summer. And I actually quit. I was quitting. I was trying to get out. And I went to my grandma's house because I'm from Oklahoma City and she was in the city. And I told her we were done with summer workouts and I was going to get a job and be up there with her. And she sniffed it out and was like, I don't know. I thought they said that you had, your workouts on these dates. And I was like, nah, like we're done. And she was like, well, let's go see. And we went up and sure enough, Coach Ship was down at the bottom. And then, she asked him and, Coach Ship is talking his noise. And then he's like, man, get your butt upstairs. And then we go upstairs and they're telling Coach Stoops and that was it. And then I was back. And then,
she snipped it out pretty fast. Yeah.
Let's go see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Rest in peace, Grandma.
Oh, man,
yeah, she was great.
Oh, all grandmas know best, man.
No, they do. Look at you now.
You're right.
Exactly.
Now, because you came in, you had an extremely successful career, and you were on that last national championship team. College football, kind of what we were talking about earlier, has changed a ton. But if you had to nail it down to a couple things, what would you say the biggest difference is now of winning a national championship now than it was 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago?
Man, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think kids today have to deal with a lot more outside influence than we did. We did not have social media. We did not have kind of the things that could affect you kind of mentally and emotionally as much. We were kind of siloed in that sense and was able to just focus and it be all ball and that was it. Today is it's different. It's different. I think, for the ability to kind of fight through everything on the outside, all the outside noise and focus and get the job done. I think today is more impressive when I watch, the kids perform and do what they do and develop, because it's easy to have a crowd or a group applaud you and tell you that you're awesome now. And it happens all the time on a regular basis, which in a lot of cases builds complacency. And in complacency, obviously, we know nobody's growing. We're just atrophying. And so with that, I'm like, man, these kids deal with a lot. And, for teams and staffs that are able to guide and mold and develop young men and are able to focus to go on throughout a season and win a championship is really impressive.
I was gonna go off that is they scream your accomplishments or whisper your accomplishments and scream your failures. It's a lot harder when every mistake is on all over the place now. You know what I mean? It's like mistakes can no longer be done after they happen. They can carry on for who knows how long. But like you said, like with the mental health and of these kids and what they go through. We've put in the Soul Mission program here at OU. Have you gotten familiar with that at all? Have you talked to them or anything?
Yes. Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's incredible. I think is necessary for development outside of football. I think that's the biggest part. The hardest thing, in life is doing life. To be honest, and football is really easy.
That's a really good quote.
Yeah,
it's simple, but it's really good. Yeah,
football, you're born. Guys are born to do that. If they're at that level, you're there. You're born for that. Period. You can do it, and but the other stuff is more weighty and can affect what happens when you're inside the walls doing your football thing.
Yeah, I feel like back then, or even kind of when I played, more to a tune of, when you stepped off the field, you had a bad game. Of course, you're going to hear from your coaches. You'll see it on film, but you're not going to go look at your phone and you're going to see 20 tweets or 20 texts about, people telling you how bad you played or how good you played. So, like you said, everything's just amplified.
Coaches and players alike, coaches as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And I think it's everybody how they're
responding,
how they manage it. That's why it's still, to me, so impressive how last year, not this past season, the year before, how Kirby Smart was able to navigate a back-to-back national championship team. He like brainwashed those guys thinking people were saying they're going 8-5, and nobody said they're going 8-5. Everybody thought they were the best team, but he had his team believe in that, and they had that mindset day in and day out, and they were able to do it because more and more you see sometimes not the most talented team that goes and wins it.
No, I agree. I forgot about that.
Well, yeah, I mean the disparity. I think that's coming. Well, I think the college football landscape is getting better too from a talent perspective. As you say that, the bottom is rising, and I'm seeing like, I wouldn't try. Well, D-Rob is here in Dallas, and there was a couple kids that he's like, man, come. I want you to come meet these kids and give them some nuggets. And I'm out there and I'm like, dang, like this kid is 8 years old, 9 years old, and I'm giving them tips. And obviously D-Rob's giving them tips and he knows a lot of what I know. And so I'm like, man, by the time this kid is 12, 13, he's going to be in a headspace that is beyond anywhere I could imagine when I was that age. And so this has been happening, since, I don't know, I'll say like 2012, 13, where training outside of, I guess, the sport just boomed. And so like the one-on-one trainings and these are guys that played in the NFL that are training kids or played college at a high clip that are training kids and giving them all this knowledge. And the quality of the game and the talent, I think, is going up because of all of this one-on-one training that's been happening outside of the sport. Whereas when I was young, that was absolutely not a thing. You just, play throw up tackle or, you did some 7-on-7 and that was about it. And when you got into the season, whatever your plays was, you ran that. We didn't really work on any fundamentals or anything in junior high or high school. It was just kind of, throw it there or run here, go 5 yards and stop or, whatever it was. But today these kids are seriously talented and they're getting it from really talented people who know what they're talking about. And so the college game is benefiting, in a major way from that. And the NFL is too. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, there's a lot more longevity too in the NFL game. But yeah, it just seems like these kids are coming in and they are so much more physically and mentally developed, fundamentally developed than they were, like you said, even 10 years ago. I think that's kind of one of those too. It's kind of maybe even kind of contributing to the transfer portal because these kids feel like if they don't come in year one, they're red shirt or they don't play a ton, they feel like, I need to go to a different opportunity just because they feel to that level that they should be playing. But kind of building up that too is there heading into next year, everybody's really excited with OU heading into the SEC. But from one great wide receiver, is there any wide receivers on the OU football team that you're looking forward to take that next step next year? Maybe some guys that you're looking at to bring this program into the SEC on the offensive side.
Offensive side, obviously you're looking forward to seeing what the transfer does, Burks, as he gets in and, finds his footing and his place in the offense. But I've been a Jaden Gibson fan for a while now. Just his length and his speed, like he is just a problem to me, like on the field. And so I'm looking forward to him taking another step. And I feel like Farouk, from a leadership standpoint, needs to be that guy. I think he definitely has the tools, the ability. He's very athletic, very, he has suddenness. He, has some toughness about him. And I think from a leadership standpoint, he needs to step that up.
Yeah, no, Jade Gibson is one guy that Woody talked about last week a little bit. One guy that's impressed him, just throughout practice and stuff. He makes competitive catches. He's a lot faster than he looks just because he is so long. I think it kind of makes it look like it's slower than he is. Yeah. But, I agree with you.
Like giraffe.
Yeah, no, that jersey kind of hangs on him a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It flows a little bit. But, no, it's going to be really good. And then just as a team as a whole, what do you think are the biggest things that OU kind of needs to transition or beef up going into the SEC? You know, it is, everybody knows it's a more physical style play. You know, week in and week out, it is going to be a tougher challenge. So just kind of, it might even be a mindset. Like, what do you think OU needs to work on and develop going into the SEC next year?
So going to the SEC, obviously you pack your defense. And I'm so excited. I'm so happy that our leaders on defense stayed to take us into the SEC. I think that was huge for us as a whole. But yeah, defense obviously has to stay, the same, and that attitude has to be there. And then offense, I feel like we have to establish some kind of run game, man. And I'd love to see us go under center some, with Coach Luttrell and Joe John back there, or calling plays or whatnot. I think with that and being able to stretch the field at the same time is going to really give us our chance to make some noise in the SEC. But packing defense, I think, is first and foremost, and which I know BV is serious about that, and we're going to have that, especially with what we did in this last year's recruiting class. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like next year.
Yeah, adding kind of a more multi-dimensional. Nothing drives me crazy than, it's like third and very short, 3rd and 1, and you're going shotgun, you're handing the ball 5 yards. 5 yards behind line. Yeah. I know, it still drives me crazy. It's so backwards. So, especially when you're going to have a lot of big boys on the other side of the line. So, I don't know. I'd like to see that too.
Yeah, packing some weight over there.
It'd be cool, right? Like, I think as a variation, and it's like let defenses know that, we play bully ball too. Like we're just gonna line up and we're coming downhill ISO just to make a statement. Yeah. In addition to what we do in spread and what we do in the screen game and what we do in stretching it, that's also an aspect of our offense. I think it'd be a nice piece.
Yeah, kind of mimic more of the pro style offense.
Exactly.
Because you are playing so much more physically gifted players week in and week out.
No. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mark, we appreciate you. We appreciate you joining today. Yeah. Hopefully, down the line, we'll have you come back on a little bit too, maybe towards the end of the season. But we appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Mark.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate your boys having me, man. Good to see y'all.
Looking forward to seeing those headphones.
Congrats on the show.
Yep. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
I got you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'll be repping them for sure. Everybody watching, remember to like, subscribe to the channel, comment, helps the algorithm, and remember to keep it in the family. We'll see you next week.